Hey everyone, Zeddy here. And as we all know, in April, every single year, the rotation happens in Hearthstone where the last year of Hearthstone cards are rotated to Wild, and all is great. We get a brand new set, we get all this new stuff, and things change. We get a new year title. We don't know what it is going to be this year coming up, but right now we're in the year of the dragon, so we'll have a new year starting. And typically every April, we get new cards rotated to the Hall of Fame. Last year we had Baku and Gen, Doomguard, Naturalize, and cards of that nature. So this year coming up, we'll have rotation, and we'll likely have a new Hall of Fame entry. There's been Hall of Fame entries every single time. What is the Hall of Fame? Well, what's the purpose of it? Typically, Blizzard's done it to remove cards that have seen too much play in every deck, helps force changes in the meta, remove cards that are against the design philosophy, such as Charge, which has been kind of removed from the game, things that are unfun and interactive, such as that, like Ice Block, things like that nature. So, and even in certain instances, cards have been rotated early to the Hall of Fame, such as I mentioned earlier, Baku and Gen, as odd and even decks were just so prevalent and just kind of boring and unfun to face and lose to a hero power, so they rotated it early. So, yeah, we've had that. So going forward, I thought we'd talk about what cards I think will be Hall of Famed, and then what cards I would like to see Hall of Fame, but probably won't see happening. So let's go over that. What cards do I think need to be Hall of Fame? Well, first off, Divine Spirit. Divine Spirit has been a problem card in Priest for a long time. The Inner Fire decks, notably just known as cheese decks, typically stick around playing high health minions, buffing it to an insane amount, 20, 40, 60, 80, hundreds of health, and killing your opponent from basically full health with just one minion sticking on the board. This is enabled through Divine Spirit, which doubles your minion's health. Inner Fire also can help enable this, as well as cards like Topsy Turvy, but essentially the card that gets to the point where you're going to absolutely OTK your opponent like that is Divine Spirit. And honestly, I just think it's time for that card to go. It leads to unfun interactive games where you're just killed from nowhere. And you can still have Inner Fire, you can still have cards like Topsy Turvy, which will rotate itself, but have cards like that that can give you a tempo advantage, give you a big threat, but not immediately win the game. And I think this would also open up design space for other buffs in Priest. You could have stuff like Extra Arms, things like that. Again, Velen's Chosen, that aren't like you play it and then you Divine Spirit and then you just automatically win the game if a single minion sticks. It's obnoxious, it's not fun to face, and I think it's time the Divine Spirit moves on. We've seen Combo Priest be very dominant at points this year, and let's just have other stuff open. Yes, Priest is in a bad spot, but I think a lot of it comes down to if they print cards that give Priest assets, well, then Divine Spirit's just going to dominate, and we're in this problem, and it's not fun. So that card I would like to see go. We have Leeroy Jenkins. Now, this one's going to upset a lot of people. People love Leeroy. They love to go face. They love the flavor. They love just everything about Leeroy, but I have to say, this card has been in, like, every aggro deck forever. It's not necessarily fun that every game, well, I guess I'm dead to Leeroy, or you're at 20 health and your opponent plays Leeroy Shadow Step, Leeroy Eviscerate, Prep Eviscerate, or the Leeroy Zero Mana, and it gets to be absurd where you can be at a high health, but just Leeroy, and this card alone has been in, like, I can't count how many decks. Tempo Rogue, Highlander Hunter, Mech Paladin, Galakrond Warlock, Zoo Warlock, OTK Galakrond Priest, Face Hunter, Dragon Hunter. The list goes on and on. If you look on HS Replay right now, you search for Leeroy Jenkins. It is in 44.5% of decks right now. That's all decks registered on HS Replay with a played win rate of 72%. The card has been in every deck for too long. It's time to move on. It's not interactive. It's not fun. It's also part of the design philosophy of Blizzard to get away from Charge. We just need to move on from Leeroy. I know people love the card, but it's time. The last card we even seen with Charge that has been made is Chillblade Champion, a Paladin Lifesteal Charge minion in Knights of the Frozen Throne in 2018. I believe with cards like Leeroy, if they were to Hall of Fame it, they can open up the avenue for new aggressive cards, maybe new charge minions, that can actually see play. Because if you give aggro too much tools when you have a card like Leeroy, you just can't play the game. You're going to die. Because Leeroy is just always there to be that finisher, that insane finisher. So I would love for Leeroy to Hall of Fame. I know people love it. It's going to suck for the aggro purists. I'm not one of them, but, for those people, and it's time. It's time. And another card that has been very divisive this year, Edwin VanCleef. It's time for Edwin to go. This is the ultimate scam card. Before there was Dragon Queen Alexstrasza and all these other mana cheat scam cards, there's been Edwin. 3 mana, 20/20, 30/30, whatever you want it to be. It can just steal games. It's unfair. It's not fun. Yeah, some people just say it's a 3 mana 2/2. And technically, they're right if you play it like that. But nobody plays it that way. Unless you are the worst hand possible. And even then, it can still win games. But to lose the game to one card that just, it's unfair, and because we're keep printing 0 mana cards and lackeys that generate value, so even if you cheat out this Edwin and you get it 20/20, you still generated all these resources, you gain nothing up for it. Before you would give up stuff for it, but we're forever going to be in a value generation, RNG generation, discover generation card with every deck. So Edwin's always going to be able to do stuff where you cheat out and get a huge giant Edwin, and you also generate value. It's just always going to be that way with cards like Shadow Step and Lackeys and Backstab and Galakrond and Togwoggle, and they're not going to stop making cards like this. This is the way Hearthstone has been for many years now, is discover created value, and Edwin it needs to go. It's not fair. It sucks to lose to. It's not really a clever combo to make a giant Edwin. It's vomit cards, make a giant Edwin, your opponent doesn't have an answer, he's done. I think it's time to move on from this. Hall of Fame it. It's been in almost every World Championship lineup since the beginning of time. Let's let Rogue do some other stuff other than scamming with Edwin. Let's move on. And then my last 2 cards that I believe should be Hall of Famed, and it pains me. I am a combo player by heart. I love these cards, but both, I'm going to lump them together because I think they kind of go hand in hand. Malygos and Alexstrasza. 2 legendary dragons, allow for crazy combos, tick your opponent down to 15 health, and then blast them away with Mally Moonfire, Mally Frostbolt Ice Lance, Fireball, stuff like that. Anytime any mana cheat's been introduced, whether it be Emperor Thorson, Florist, Galakrond, it's just enabled these crazy combos that just kill your opponent from 30, and even in instances of 60, 80, 100 health, if you could really get going crazy with Malygos. I love this card. Malygos is arguably my favorite card of all time. I have played thousands of game of Malygos Druid, but I think it's time for it to go to Wild, allow for other combo cards to come up. As long as, they print new combo cards, new things you can do that, are restricted by things like Malygos and Alexstrasza that don't necessarily rely on OTKing your opponent in one turn. I think it'd be good for the game. It would open up avenues. I hate to say I love these cards, but if I'm gonna accept that Leeroy has been in every aggro deck since the beginning of time, while Malygos and Alex have been in most of the combo decks since the beginning of time as well. And I just think with the Hall of Fame, keep making things new, making things fresh. Malygos and Alexstrasza going away, it'd make me sad, but I think it would be good and it would open things up. So those are the cards that I think should be and hopefully will be Hall of Famed. There's no new cards that I would like to see Hall of Famed early, for the exception of Lackey cards, because Lackeys drive me insane. But that's for a different discussion. But that would be too complicated, too messy. They're never going to do that. They're proud of the Lackeys. But there are cards that I think should be Hall of Famed, or at least considered. And I want to go over those. So we'll maybe honorable mentions, but we'll talk about them. So we have Frost Nova. Frost Nova is a card that I think is the definition of unfun. Freezing your opponent's entire board, not allowing them to ever attack. It's just frustrating. Hearthstone is a minion-based game most times. And when you can't play with your minions, it's just really not fun. I'm fine with I'm fine with freeze. I'm fine with a board freeze. Even Blizzard. I'm fine with Blizzard at 6 mana. Because you have to pay 6 mana, typically, to play the card. And 6 mana to freeze the entire board is reasonable. You get damage too. But Frost Nova at 3, and often you can cheat it to less, is just very frustrating. And when you have mana cheat like Luna's Pocket Galaxy or other cards, you play that in a giant, your opponent can't interact, they're dead. And it's generally an extremely frustrating experience. I think cards like Ray of Frost are acceptable. You freeze a couple minions, Frostbolt, things like that. But the cheap full board freeze just feels too much to me. And I feel like it's time for a card like that. To me, it's worn out its welcome. And it's one that I would like to see Hall of Fame. Another card that I would like to see, this one might sound stupid, as it's just a 1-mana 1/1 charge, is Stone Tusk Boar. Every time this card has seen play, it's in a very toxic and unfun deck to face. Examples being Quest Rogue, APM Priest, and recently the Death Rattle Apothecary Rogue, where you would cheat out an Anubisaf and then buff your Stone Tusk Boars by 1 billion and then kill your opponent from nothing. It's just cheap charge I don't think should exist. Even Bluegill Warrior is concerning if you get rid of Stone Tusk Boar. South Sea Deckhand as well. But I think you gotta start somewhere, and I feel like this card might be one of the most limiting cards in terms of design space that's out there. I know I've heard the design team talk about it several times, that it's one of the cards they have to check with like so many cards they make. So I'd like to see Stone Tusk Boar just to open up design space again. It's with the philosophy of getting away from charge. I'd like to see it Hall of Fame. I think it would be smart. And then lastly, another one, this card, I don't even know if it's ever seen meta play, but it just creates problems, is Nozdormu. It's a solid meme, 9 mana 8/8. Your opponent only gets 15 seconds. They're a roper. They're a life coach. And they don't know what to do when they miss their turn or whatever. That's fine in principle. But when we're printing cards like Ysera the Unleashed that cheat out dragons from portals, and there's all these animations, and then you go to your opponent and it completely skips their turn. They don't get 15 seconds, they get 0. This is commonly happening right now, and it hasn't been fixed, it hasn't been addressed, and it could cost a competitive game of Hearthstone by they literally can't play their turn because a bunch of portals came out, Nozdormu came out in the middle of it, and because of the way the game works, it just completely skips your turn. It recently happened to Asmodai on his stream. Check Asmo out. Awesome dude. Completely skipped his turn. Couldn't do anything. Loses the game. I just think getting rid of Nas it's a cheap way of getting around these kind of problems. But it just allows these problems to not have to happen. And for some players that can't play quickly, whether it be they're slower, more methodical, or they literally have physical conditions that don't allow them to play super fast in a game filled with animations that you can't turn off, I think it's just a card that's problematic and honestly just kind of needs to go. So those are the cards that I would like to see Hall of Fame, or at least I think should be Hall of Fame. Let me know what you think. What cards would you like to see Hall of Fame? Do you disagree with my picks? Like Leeroy, like I'm going to hear a lot about, because Leeroy. But anyways, let me know in the comments below. If you enjoy the video, please like and subscribe. This is my first video to the channel, and I don't want this to just be a VOD upload channel. I want to have transformative content, discussion. I will put up VODs and gameplay and stuff like that when I get to it, but I want to have these type of videos where we actually discuss and learn and talk about Hearthstone. So please like, subscribe, and yeah. We'll talk to you guys later. Have a good day, and stay salty, my friends.